and a very somber evening. It is on July 31st, 2015, 6:32 p.m. over here on the East Coast. Lee Sanders here of the RCWR Show with some very unfortunate, very sad, very depressing news to share with all of you wrestling fans out there. WWE Hall of Famer, WWE legend, shockingly has passed away. I am talking about the hot rod, Rowdy Roddy Piper, dead at the age of 61 from cardiac arrest. I was on my commute home from work and I was visiting my usual websites. I did not see anything that had came about. I literally just came in from work, just came home not that long ago, made myself some dinner, sat in front of the TV, was watching a little bit of the news, and something just said, check to see what's going on. And next thing you know, I see this piece of news. I thought maybe it was some type of a cruel joke, some type of a hoax, but it is not. Now, I'm learning just as I'm reporting it to you guys right now. I just wanted to hop on here and share the news with you all immediately as soon as I saw what had went down. Now, courtesy of TMZ, does somewhat of the breaking news slash info come from as they report that the wrestling legend Rowdy Roddy Piper has died at the age of 61. TM Sports has learned Piper, of course, born Roderick George Toombs, died from cardiac arrest in his sleep at his home in Hollywood around noon today. And I can definitely go on record and say I was checking my news outlets all throughout the day, did not find anything. I didn't get any tweets, no private messages. So I guess let's keep reading on. Now, this is all new to me. I'm learning this in real time, just as you all that maybe have not heard the news are listening to me to find out what the hell is going on. We're learning this together right now. Piper was a wrestling icon, one of the biggest stars in the WWE back in the 80s, and even wrestled in WrestleMania 1 back in 1985, squaring off against Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. Roddy's rep tells TMZ Sports, direct quote, I am devastated at this news. Rod was a good friend as well as a client and one of the most generous, sincere, and authentic people I have ever known. This is a true loss to us all. Now, it should be noted that Piper had been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma back in 2006, but last November he said he was cancer free. Family source had told TMZ Sports that he was cancer free at the time of his death. As you all know, Roddy was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame back in 2005. He's always been involved in numerous WWE lists, whether it's top heels of all time, top superstars of all time, top promo guys of all time. He's made the list of constant, whether it's WWE or Pro Wrestling Illustrated, you name it. He's always been on some list that's out there. Of course, Piper had a very long relationship with the WWE, last wrestling back in 2008, but he appeared on various WWE shows right on up. The very latest and earliest was 2014. He is survived by his wife, Kitty, and their four kids, which includes three daughters and son, Colton, who is currently pursuing a professional wrestling career. Very shocking, very shocking, and very eerie for the simple fact that just last week it was. Did he do an interview with uh God, I'm trying to think. Eisen. I'll pull the name up so you guys can check it out. But just recently, he was interviewed on Friday. Yeah, last week, Friday, as he was asked about the Hulk Hogan scandal. And he kind of gave vague answers. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna type it up right now in case those of you want to try to maybe find it online. I'll say Roddy Piper Eisen interview. It's the football guy. I always forget his name. See, I think I might have it right here. Bear with me a second here, guys. Rich Eisen show. That was the like very last syndicated interview that he gave, like in person. You could see him, you could hear him. Now, one other person had the opportunity to interview the Hot Rod, and he clarified a little bit more on the whole Hulk Hogan fiasco. But then you rewinded just a couple of weeks back. Remember, the Hot Rod had made headlines in a way where it looked as though he was having some type of beef with WWE Hall of Famer Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because for you podcast lovers out there, remember that the Hot Rod, he did have a podcast on the Podcast One network, but it was pulled supposedly because of a episode that Steve Austin felt kind of went a little bit below the belt. It was an episode that had featured Will Sasso, and Hot Rod was asking Will to do his Steve Austin impersonations, and there was some things that in Steve Austin's defense as far as why he went to the president of Podcast One to just have that episode be removed. He felt that some of the stuff that was covered honestly was a bit sensitive, and he did not want it to be floating around on the web. So the owner of Podcast One quietly tried to do him a solid. But from what Hot Rod had reported, on top of that particular episode being removed, his entire series was removed from Podcast One. And he would eventually have a conversation with the Podcast One owner and find out what exactly was going on. And originally, he was going to be fired, but they had told him that that episode, after they spoke with Steve Austin, they wanted to go on ahead to abide by his wishes just to make everybody happy and pull the episode off. Hot Rod, he basically said, you know what? Look, all due respect, I appreciate the opportunity you gave me and everything, but I just want to go on ahead and I just want to part ways. And so he was successfully able to part ways with Podcast One. He had tried to start up the podcast all over. Not really sure how many episodes he was able to pump out, but I know the series was on hiatus as all that was going on. And you just can't help but think about Steve Austin right now and just be like, damn, I know Steve Austin will for sure talk about this very shortly. Hopefully, before this week is out, maybe he'll post something on YouTube or do a special podcast edition. But I'm very curious to hear what he has to say with the passing of the Hot Rod. Did he and Hot Rod truly bury the hatchet? Because both men, as far as I know, they didn't necessarily call each other to squash whatever was going on. They both had expressed their side on their respective podcasts. So Hot Rod went first, Steve Austin went second, basically saying, hey, look, I didn't get Hot Rod fired, because that's what Hot Rod was saying, was that Steve Austin got him fired from Podcast One. Steve Austin said, no, on the contrary, I didn't get Hot Rod fired. I just said I wanted that episode removed. This is the truth, which is the Podcast One guy talked to Hot Rod, and Roddy decided that he was going to step down. Then it went back to Roddy on his next podcast, and he basically confirmed what Austin said. Yeah, him and the Podcast One owner did meet, and they got their thing out. They aired it out. Piper shook dude's hand, rolled out, and Piper just said, hey, man, sorry, I wasn't trying to cause any harm. It was just a little bit of fun. No harm, no foul done. You know, love and appreciate everything that you've done for the business. And that was basically it. So I would hope that there was some type of a phone conversation between the two. Otherwise, I would just imagine Steve Austin is probably going to be like, ouch, what the fuck? This stings for me as a professional wrestling fan, and I've just been thinking about the past couple of years of just people that we've lost. And for me, the ones that have just really hurt me the most emotionally, definitely when Eddie Guerrero passed, when Chris Benoit, passed. We know the circumstances around that, but it definitely still affected me in a big way. And with the loss of the hot rod, I'm definitely devastated. I mean, 61 is so young to be going out. I know a lot of people look at 61 and they say that's kind of up there. No, believe it or not, I know this is kind of cliche. 61 is actually like the new 40 now. Believe it or not. I mean, look, if you guys live long enough to be 60, hopefully you remain in really good shape and all that. You're gonna see and feel exactly what I'm talking about. But we've got so many young, vibrant 60-year-olds running around. Hot Rod, no exception. Author was doing his thing with the podcasting. Hell, at some point he was even making his rounds doing a couple of improv shows, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he at some point was doing a circuit of improv clubs or whatever. But actor, wrestler, oh my God, you think about the history that he had with the NWA, the couple of years that he spent in the AWA, of course, WrestleMania 1. I mean, how about freaking bragging rights on that? It's not every day you can come across a person that had to do with the very first WrestleMania and not just be involved in the very first WrestleMania, but was in the main event at WrestleMania. You think about the great long feud that went on for decades that he had with the immortal Hulk Hogan. Put to the side all the problems that the Hulkster is having right now, and you just look back on his rivalry with the Hot Rod. If you guys have the WWE network, I would just like to encourage the heck out of you to go check out the rivalry series on there. And there is a really great, it's about maybe an hour, 5 minutes edition where it's covering the Hulkster taking on the Hot Rod, leading all the way up until their WCW days and all that. My God. Actor, I mean, the first couple of movies that come to mind, They Live, which came out in 1988, which has one of my favorite voice actors of all time, Keith David. Y'all may recognize that name from the Gargoyles animated series or Menace to Society. I mean, that guy was just every freaking where, man. No, not Menace to Society. Dead Presidents. I forgive me, folks. Dead Presidents. He was involved in with a Lorenzo Tate, very young Lorenzo Tate. But man, They Live. Great freaking movie. I just love the whole concept of it. Years ahead of its time. I mean, even when you go back and you watch that movie today, all right, just to give you guys a little bit of the plot without giving too much away. Basically, it's like in the very near future, and apparently there's like aliens that live amongst the humans. And like the only way you can really see that they are aliens is you have to have like these special pair of glasses, kind of like X-ray glasses or whatever. It's just a really cool plot. Trust me, you would love it if you've never seen it before. I would imagine those that movie is gonna like now gonna become very hard to find, just like with what happened when Dusty Rhodes had passed, the DVD that came out in the mid 2000s. Everybody was just like, now it's a case where if it is online, you're gonna have to pay in the hundreds, maybe even thousands. I actually saw one person try to charge $1,000 for that Dusty Rhodes DVD. So I can only imagine where some of the Hot Rod's classic movies, how they're going to be tagged online. But aside from 1988's They Live, I'm also reminded of Hell Comes to the Frogs, another favorite movie of mine that I have really enjoyed. Just great stuff. And then, of course, you think about when the Hot Rod was involved with Legends House and all that. I mean, that was a nice, good run and everything. But just so many raw emotions that I have right now, because for me as a kid, I can kick back and I can say I grew up on Hot Rod. I'm in my mid 30s. I grew up on this guy. So it's just not the same if you get the network and you're somebody that's like in your 20s right now or you're in your teens. You may have seen little bits and pieces here and there to be able to form your own opinion on, oh well, yeah, I'm familiar with. It's just not the same. And I can't tell you with such great conviction and such great passion in my voice the way that I am breaking this down to you guys. This is just a major, major blow for the sport of professional wrestling. You just can't help but feel for the Hot Rod. He battled his problems. He's had his own demons over the years, never to the lengths of a Scott Hall or a Jake the Snake Roberts, but he did kind of have some demons that he needed to overcome. And, he, for the most part of his entire career, he was always one of those type of people who, if you saw that he was involved in a promotion, you knew it was going to be a nice breeze. Piper's Pit. I mean, you name it. Whether it was the Piper's Pit, whether he was wrestling somebody or being some type of an authority figure or whatever, you knew that when the Hot Rod was on the screen, you were gonna have a good time. And for those rare occasions when you didn't have a good time checking out whatever segment he was involved in, first thing you were able to say to yourself was, you know what? It's not Hot Rod's fault. 9 times out of 10, it probably had to do with the people that wrote whatever they wanted him to say, however they wanted that segment to be booked or whatever. And, unfortunately for me growing up as a kid, as much as I got to see all forms of wrestling, I never was able to see some of the greats like Rowdy Piper live in person. And I'm just reminded of the very first time that I had saw the Hot Rod. Um, it was actually at a WWE live event. I believe it was a WWE live event in DC. Let me see, was it last year? If it wasn't last year, it might have been the year before. I know if you follow us on our Facebook page on Infinity One Productions, I actually have all the photos and you can see I had took a couple of pictures of a Piper's Pit. I forgot who it was that he was interviewing. I want to say it's coming back to me now. He did the Piper's Pit where he was trying to talk to the crowd and find out who did they think was going to win. I believe the very first Andre the Giant Battle Memorial. So that was like my first time seeing the Hot Rod live in person. I was just marking out like a little freaking kid. I was so excited. I was just pulling at my girlfriend and I'm like, it's the Hot Rod. It's the Hot Rod. And she's like, yeah. She's like, I bet you're excited, honey. I was like, yes, yes, I am. And I tried to get as many pictures of him as I could. And, just a serious blow, a great mind for the business, able to contribute so much, you know, a great ambassador. I mean, when you just think about his style, his psychology in the ring, the way that he would be able to reach out, reach out and grab your heart and just whether he wanted you to boo him or cheer him on, he played the sympathetic card. I know for a lot of people, he was kind of like in between. He wasn't necessarily a full blown heel. He was kind of like a tweener is the phrase that some people like to put out there. But I tell you, nobody knew how to work a crowd the way the Hot Rod could. I was so ecstatic. One of the last times that he was in the WWE, it was like around the mid 2000s. I want to say it was like maybe around 2007, 2008. I want to say when he was managing Sean O'Hare. I was like, and I love the hell out of Sean O'Hare. I was like, wow, Sean O'Hare, and he's hooked up with the hot. Oh, this is going to be awesome. And unfortunately, it didn't last that long because Hot Rod, that's another thing about the Hot Rod. He would constantly get himself in trouble with his mouth. One of the best talkers out there would always shoot from the hip. That was the one thing about the Hot Rod. He always shot from the hip. And a lot of times that kind of came back to bite him in the ass. And I remember when he was managing Sean O'Hare, there was some interview that he did. And WWE got wind of it. I think it was something he did on HBO. It might have been, I believe Bob Costas might have had a show around that time. I believe Hot Rod had did something on there. Got back to the WWE. They weren't really too fond of it. Next thing you know, they released him. Sean O'Hare's career was never quite the same after that. I don't know if maybe they were kind of retaliating on Sean because he was associated with Piper, and maybe to certain people in upper management, they believe that maybe Sean, in some shape or form, knew that Hot Rod was going to go on this show and he was going to say whatever, even if Sean denied it and he was telling the truth. They probably thought otherwise, and he ended up being in the doghouse as a result of that. I mean, there's a guy that's never quite honestly is going to be the same. Wasn't the same ever again as he passed away. What was that, last year or whatever? So very sad news. Very sad news. But you just think about all the promotions that the Hot Rod has been involved in. I mean, even in TNA, he was involved briefly. I mean, the man definitely made his mark wherever he roamed. I definitely want to hear from you guys. Post your thoughts, your favorite memories of the Hot Rod. And we're definitely, when we're able to piece more information together, we'll definitely share it with you all on our Facebook page, also on Twitter. So follow us, Twitter at the RCWR Show, Facebook, Infinity One Productions. That's with an E, spell out one. All the links you need is right down below. Check it out. And we'll definitely follow up on the very latest on the Hot Rod on our Tuesday night live edition podcast of the RCWR Show. You'll be able to catch that on Spreaker.com. All the links you need is in this episode description. And if you can't join us live, because I'm actually going to try to do my best to, on top of reading you all's reactions from this video, we'll actually open up the phone lines for that episode just so we can hear from those of you that would like to talk about the Hot Rod for a little bit. So do join us Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern on Spreaker.com. And if you can't join us live, all the links you need will in this episode description. You can check out as far as accessing our shows on the downloads, so you can check it out whenever you get a chance. But once again, just to recap for those of you that might have joined us and you didn't catch the beginning, oh man, WWE legend, WWE Hall of Famer, the Hot Rod, Rowdy Roddy Piper, passed away today at the age of 61 due to cardiac arrest. He passed away earlier this afternoon on Friday, July 31st, 2015. He passed away at noon. I believe that would actually be West Coast time since he was residing in California. So when that went down, it was probably about, yeah, 3 in the afternoon at my end. So I would think that paramedics and crew, they tried to do everything that they could for as long as they could. And then from the time when it was called that, okay, he's dead, call the time, to when the immediate family was contacted, and just the rippling effect from there, that kind of probably explains why the information on the East Coast in North America kind of came a little bit late, like, what the heck is going on. But I would imagine that this is going to be one topic that is going to be discussed on a lot of shows um, for the rest of this week, going into next week. Pretty sad calendar year it's been for 2015 when you just think about or even go a step further, you just look at the past 5 years or the past 10 years or just the past 20 years, and you just think about all the people that has died, especially when you go back and you just look at those first couple of WrestleManias, and it's like there's a majority of folks that's like not around today. Unfortunately, it's very crazy. I just want to end on this note, just to let you know how heavy this is really hitting me. I don't know if you guys can see it behind me here, but I have yeah, actually, let me just kind of boost this up a little bit. There's a AWA picture that's right up here where my finger is. And, it has a lot of signatures on there. And the Hot Rod, Roddy Piper, is one of those signatures. And a friend of mine, colleague, shout out to David Hero of the Pro Wrestling Report. He was selling some stuff on eBay, and that was actually one of the things that he was selling. And I had said to him, I said, "Man," I said, "this is a really cool item." It's like, "Are you sure you want to sell this?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's okay." He's like, "I still have the original, but," he's like, "trust me, this is definitely worth some money right here. Should you decide you want to sell it." And I told him, I said, "No, I'm not interested in selling it. I want to keep it, to myself and pass it along to my kids." And he was like, "Smart man." He's like, "Honestly, that makes me feel good knowing that, you're not gonna buy it just to try to sell it." And he's like, "Okay, that's awesome." And a lot of signatures that's on there on that photo. Like I said, Hot Rod is on there as well. A lot of the signatures that's on there, including, I think Vern Gagne even signed that. A lot of the people that's signed that are all dead, with the exception of a few people, and Hulk Hogan is in there. It's just really sad. Really, really sad, man. Just really sad. As I always end, whenever I get done talking, I always say to you guys, make sure y'all are safe, and be kind to one another. One other thing I'd like to add, if you know anybody that's starting to kind of get up there in age, I would say 45 on, if you haven't gone to the doctor in a while, make sure you get yourself checked out. Make sure you get your blood pressure checked. Make sure you get your cholesterol level checked. Do the whole 9 yards. Make it be your business to go see your doctor, whenever, every 6 months, yearly checkups. I know they do that. Take advantage of that, especially if you have a relative that hasn't been to the doctor in a while. Because I'm telling you, I bet you um, that he had not seen a doctor in a while. I'm very curious. I hope that information is released, because I would love to know when was like the last time he had saw the doctor and got a physical. Because if it's been more than a year, this could have been a situation where maybe, just maybe, his passing could have been avoided. But I don't want to deal with what if scenarios. You know, Definitely, Hot Rod, you will be missed, man. Won't be another one like you. That's gonna do it, guys. Wishing all y'all be safe, be kind to one another. Everybody, do take care.